The Sermon on the Mount is really the greatest sermon ever preached. And when Jesus, of course, was teaching, I don't think he felt like he was, preaching a sermon per se. He was speaking to the crowd about what was important to him and important to the kingdom that he had come to establish. And yet, as we think of it, and as it's gotten its name over the centuries, this body of scriptures, Matthew 5, 6, and 7, has come to be known as the Sermon on the Mount. Because we think of sermons, we think of preachers, and we think of how Christianity has been uniquely shaped by great sermons down through the centuries. And yet no sermon ever delivered, not even the sermon that Peter preached, the very first sermon preached in the Christian church on the day of Pentecost, the day the church was founded. As great as Peter's sermon was, it doesn't compare to Jesus' Sermon on the Mount, because Jesus is the King, God manifested in the flesh. He's come to earth to establish the kingdom. And in the Sermon on the Mount, he is delivering his manifesto. This is his mission, his purpose statement. And the people at the end of the sermon, it's a fairly lengthy sermon, but at the end of the sermon, they're mesmerized and they say, "We have never heard anyone preach like this before." And so they were admiring not only the way he preached, they were admiring who he was and the authority with which he delivered that message. It's very, very powerful, and that's why the very first lesson is framed around the idea of, let's just look at this sermon for what it is. It is a sermon, and it is the greatest sermon ever preached.